From Dina Bass over at Bloomberg, Microsoft's gaming chief is still looking for acquisition, sees future growth, and is planning on how to enter and partner in the handheld device and mobile store markets. He went over to Bloomberg's New York HQ and did an interview with them talking about Xbox's business and everything that they're looking to accomplish. And there's some interesting tidbits in here, okay? After a tough year, Microsoft's video game chief is still looking for acquisitions and charting how to compete and partner in markets for handheld game devices and mobile stores. Deals that add, quote, geographic diversity, including Asia, might be worthwhile, Phil Spencer said in an interview Tuesday at Bloomberg's offices in New York. Buying another mobile company would add to titles Microsoft picked up in its $69 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard last year. He goes on, quote, we definitely want to be in the market, and when we can find teams and technology and capability that add to what we're trying to do in gaming at Microsoft, absolutely we will keep our heads up, Spencer said. Still, there's nothing imminent, and very large deals are probably off the table at present as the company is spending a lot of time absorbing Microsoft Blizzard or Activision Blizzard employees. Microsoft wants to diversify the teams working on games by looking more to China, he said. The company developed a new mobile version of Age of Empires, a world-building franchise that first appeared in the 90s by partnering with Tencent Holdings Limited. Microsoft and Tencent released the game globally in October. Quote, it's been a good area for us to learn from creative teams that have really unique capability. The real opportunity is to partner with creative teams in China for global. This is like the elephant in the room in the industry right now, is after especially like Pal World and Black Myth Wukong. Making games in China is pretty cheap. It's pretty cheap. And there's a lot of talent there. There's a lot of talent there. And I think they are realizing, hey, if we can go buy up some studios in China, we can rock and roll. It's not just China, it's like Eastern devs. Yeah, Pal World is Japan, but it's China, Japan, South Korea. Somebody gave me crap because I specified South Korea in a video. And they're like, you don't have to say South Korea. We know if you say Korea, you probably don't mean North Korea. And I was like, I still feel like I should specify. Yeah, it's like Microsoft's like, hey, we got a new studio opening up in Korea. Which one? Oh crap, we forgot to check. So anyway, yeah, it's Eastern game devs is the term, I guess you would say. But the point is the talent is widespread. There's a lot of people over there developing games in Japan, developing games in Korea, developing games in China. It's a lot cheaper than making those games in San Fran or Montreal or Austin, Texas. It just is. It's unfortunate that now we're getting to the point where like outsourcing is hitting video games as well. But it's just a fact of the matter when you have your development teams based in one of the most expensive cities in the entire country or world in the form of like San Francisco, the cost of you developing games is going to be really, really high because all of those people need to be paid a lot more just to survive, much less be well compensated. So it's a real problem. Like if they wanted to fix it, like Microsoft would expand game companies and studios into like, you know, the middle of Oklahoma, you know, or Western Kansas, where it's very, very cheap to live. Do that. But the problem is a lot of these artsy fartsy types don't want to live in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky or Kansas or somewhere. They want to go and live in the beautiful artsy village and, you know, town. And when all the studios are based in those metropolitan centers like Montreal or Austin, Texas, or, you know, San Francisco or something, or Vancouver, that's where everybody kind of collects. And they might leave a studio that Microsoft owns and go to a Ubisoft studio, or leave a Ubisoft studio and go over to this other studio. But ultimately, they're still staying in that very expensive city. So it's definitely something they're keeping an eye on, is that there's a lot of very talented studios. Like the guys that are doing Crimson Desert, I believe, are South Korean. Pal World is Japan. And then Black Myth Wukong is Chinese. So there's a lot of opportunity over there for expansion, to say the very least. Phil Spencer went on and said he has repeatedly professed his admiration for handheld gaming devices, said, quote, the expectation is that we would do something in that category, handheld devices specifically. Although the company is working on prototypes and considering what it might do, Spencer also asked his group to look at the market and develop its own vision based on what it learned. Such a device is a few years out, he said. Which puts it like 2027, 2028. So people expecting a Xbox handheld device next year, I think we'll be disappointed. In the coming months, designers and engineers will focus on making the Xbox app work better on existing portable devices and partnering with hardware makers to ensure that their products sync with Xbox games and experiences, he said. The Xbox app right now is good rather than great on some of those gadgets, he said. Longer term, I love us building devices, Spencer said, and I think our team could do some real innovative work, but we want to be informed by learning and what's happening now. The company's planned online store for mobile games has been delayed as the group decides or does additional research on the market, Spencer said. Xbox President Sarah Bond had announced the store in May with a planned release date of July, but staffers are still talking to mobile developers, including those responsible for Microsoft-owned Candy Crush and Call of Duty Mobile, to figure out a plan. As regulatory cases involving Apple Inc.'s iOS and Alphabet Inc.'s Android mobile stores work their way through the courts in various countries, Microsoft still doesn't have an effective way to get its own store on mobile phones. Quote, so a web store would mean somebody doesn't have to go into the App Store to try and install something, but you still have to have a way to find the store, Phil Spencer said. If we're just hoping, like, if we build it, they will come, I'm going to bet that doesn't work. So my understanding is that it's basically like, I think that you could build it and distribute it, but maybe he's thinking he has to get something in the App Store that then installs the actual web store. So like, you know how some apps you'll download it and it's not the app, like it downloads an executable that then downloads the actual app and then installs the app. And I think that's what he's describing, is that he would need something like that to still distribute it through the App Store and get people to see it. But Apple probably doesn't want to do that because Apple wants a 30% cut of everything that's generated through their store, which a lot of courts are determining is not fair or competitive, but whatever. That means Xbox has to make its store unique for players and figure out what will draw content creators. At the same time, it's preparing for a world where Apple and Google mobile devices are more open to Xbox. Quote, I think the ball is moving in the right direction. I think this idea of open platforms where users have more choice, creators have more choice, you see the momentum, right? After releasing the first batch of Xbox games for Sony Group Corp's PlayStation and the Switch, Spencer is pleased with the results. Microsoft will do more of that, he said, and won't rule out any game in Microsoft's stable. I do not see sort of red lines in our portfolio that said thou must not, he said. It's too early to make any sort of decision on the next version of Halo, he said. I mean, I would think if there were any game that was the red line game where you can't bring it to PlayStation, it would be Halo. And if he's saying it's too early to make a decision, like at the very least, he's saying that is not a red line for him. So it's possible we get the next Halo game on PS5 or PS6. Is it that big of a deal? No, frankly, I don't think so, but I think it will do a lot of brand damage. Like, that is such a key Xbox franchise. It would be like launching Mario Kart on the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series consoles day one. Like it just feels weird, man. Like it just doesn't feel right. If they do that, that should be like the final step in the full conversion to multi-platform stuff. I think that that's what it would have to be. Because once you do that, I think it's just, you can't play exclusive with anything else at that point. I hope some more players, it'll sell insanely well. I honestly don't know if Halo would like pop off on Xbox. Maybe it would. Maybe. I really don't know. Settles Gaming, thank you for that. Thank you for the sub with Prime. Thank you, my friend. Blake, thank you for the 5. Pretty rich from Phil wanting to get into the Asian market after closing down Tango. Well, and it sounds like some of the reporting that came out of ZeniMax was that ZeniMax didn't want to manage Tango Gameworks because they felt like they lost a lot of the key talent in the directors and stuff that made that studio really, really worthwhile for them. And they also, like, ZeniMax executives didn't want to manage a company in Japan. Like, it was too much of a headache for them. So they decided to close that instead of closing other studios, which is a stupid reason to do it. But thankfully they got picked up and it's not going into the dustbin. You know, they seemingly still have jobs, as far as I understand it, but they say they continued to lay off people after they acquired the Activision Blizzard company, cut more than 2,500 jobs and closed 3 game design studios, which again, this happens anytime there's an acquisition. A a company buys a company and then they cut a lot of the fat or duplicated roles because they're like, we have our own marketing department. We don't need your marketing department. We have our own lawyers. We don't need your lawyers. We have our own localization team. We don't need yours. Like, they just go through and they clear it out. So it's very, very normal. Xbox, the Xbox business has never been more healthy, he said, citing growth in cloud and PC gaming as well as console usage. The business is performing right now, and I think that means a more healthy future for hardware and the games we build. He also said he's optimistic about the growth of mobile games. Quote, I feel pretty good about where this industry is going. He said, to reach new players, we need to be creative and adaptive of new business models. These devices, new devices, new ways of access. We're not going to grow the market with $1,000 consoles. I mean, I think the way they're going to try to grow the market is they're just going to double down on the mobile stuff. That seems to be what they're most excited about, is trying to get their own store on iOS and Android so that you can play your games through xCloud natively that way. So the idea, the vision is you buy a game through the Xbox store for $70 or whatever, you have Game Pass, whatever, and no matter what you bought, whether it's on Game Pass or not, you can play it in the cloud on your phone or on your TV. That's the vision. Does that work? I mean, I've told you guys my problems with the internet recently. I think that they have a long way to go before they get there. Like, internet infrastructure in the US is not quite there yet. It's just not for a lot of people. So I think they, maybe in 10, 15, 20 years, they could get there, but internet infrastructure in the US is kind of a joke. So elsewhere in the world, I know it's better, but a lot of their money comes from the US. So I think they could eventually get there, but time will tell. They are optimistic. They're happy with where they're going. They're happy with the vision. They think there's opportunities, blah, 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 whatever you want to say, but we will continue to explore it. Mobile makes a lot of money. Mobile makes a ton of money. It's ridiculous how much money mobile can make. But the clear thing is that they're trying to expand. They're trying to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's their priority. It's not necessarily catering just to like the Xbox fanboys. That's not what they're doing anymore, which I think that that's probably the right choice. I mean, the Xbox fanboys are a very small demo. I think the more they expand it, the better it's going to go.